Okay, we are moving on to lesson 3.3, or according to your notes packet, that would be 8.3. And this goes into sponsorships decisions. And the learning objective for today, I spelled that wrong, is to identify 3 factors that have impacted the growth of sponsorships. Sorry about that. So, why do companies sponsor? Why do companies make that decision to engage in sponsorship programs? Well, companies make that decision to sponsor based on the desire to achieve a desired result. So they typically use sponsorship as a vehicle to increase brand loyalty, create awareness and visibility, change or reinforce their image, drive retail traffic sales, drive regular sales, showcase community responsibility. Thus, a sponsor because they want to display their brand attributes, to entertain clients and hospitality, to recruit and retain employees, to create merchandising opportunities, to build company awareness, to differentiate products, to associate with a particular lifestyle. Other reasons why they might want to sponsor are for business-to-business marketing, to distinguish themselves from the competition, in order to introduce a new product or service to a large audience. And the last big reason would be to enter new markets. So an example of a sponsorship is that Red Bull successfully reaches their target audience through sponsorship with the US Open of Surfing in California. Conversely, it would not make sense for Red Bull to partner with the PGA for a seniors golf tournament. Real quickly, this is in your notes, but it's not on the slides. Deciding what to sponsor as sponsorship continues to grow, companies continue to be inundated with sponsorship requests. So they need to figure out what is a good fit. So that's like how this example comes into play. There is something in your notes about a software that we're not going to talk about today, so just ignore that section. So how do companies choose what to sponsor? Well, many companies invest in naming rights deals to maximize the amount of exposure gained through their sponsorship. And what actually differs sponsorship from traditional media? What allows a company to tap emotional and intimate appeals of customers. It integrates the positive feelings of sports and entertainment events with companies, products, services, and staff. Sponsorships help reach segmented targets that mass media typically proves ineffective. And it also showcases a company's products and services in an environment representative of a consumer's particular lifestyle. So an example of investing in naming rights deals to maximize that exposure gains. The Dallas Mavericks play in American Airlines Arena, while the Miami Heat play in the American Airlines Center. When both teams squared off in the 2011 NBA Finals, Front Row Marketing Services estimated that the airline received more than $10 million per game in national advertising exposure. That's a really big deal. There is some criteria that companies need to consider when deciding what to sponsor, and that includes property and company image compatibility, audience, working with retailers, media impact, exclusivity, and increase in consumer sales. So when it comes to property and company image compatibility, you have to think of things or look at, does the property offer the imagery the company wants to establish? Is it a lifestyle with which the company wants to be associated? Are the co-sponsor companies with which the company would want to be associated with? So all of those are things to consider when looking at sponsorships. So when it comes to property and company image compatibility, an example of this is WWE reported that a decision to create an on-air suitable for a younger audience, which was Raw, so that was changed from TV 14 to PG. It generated a significant spike in interest from more new sponsors. So the next criteria is the audience the sponsorship reaches. And an example of this is that thanks into large part to its commitment as the NFL sponsor, Papa John's has become the third largest pizza takeout chain, in the US, and that is behind Domino's and Pizza Hut. The next one, which I don't have a specific slide for, is working with retailers. So does the sponsorship include a retail component that can directly impact sales? That can be important for sponsorship. The next big one is exclusivity. And so sponsors must consider whether or not they are the only brand within a specific category. So thinking about soft drinks, banks, insurances, those bigger categories when sponsoring an event or property. So again, if Coca-Cola is already sponsoring an event, then Pepsi would probably not want to sponsor as well, because you want that exclusivity. So it rarely makes sense for a company to sponsor if a competing brand is sponsoring the same event. Some more examples with exclusivity. Categories can become very specific. For example, the Stance brand. Stance announced a partnership with the NBA in 2015 to become the official on-court sock provider. And note that they use that official designation phrase, and we talked about designation phrases in the last lessons. Exclusivity is a sponsorship component that sports teams and properties can take very seriously. Here's an example of that. Manchester United, who is sponsored by Pepsi, refused to take the field for a 2013 match because the scoreboard was flashing advertisements for Coca-Cola, which was a stadium sponsor. Eventually, game officials were able to strike an agreement that both parties agreed to so that the game could be played. So in order to be effective, sponsorship programs must meet the needs of the sponsoring party. The following criteria are consistent with effective sponsorships. So that includes frequent impressions, sponsorship leverage and activation, company commitments, commitment for the right reasons, communication, and fan connection. So when it comes to frequent impressions, usually we're talking about gross impressions, which refers to the frequency in which a company, product, or service is associated with the event or entertainer. The brain records an image each time a consumer sees the logo. So the goal of a sponsorship is to ensure customers remember those images the next time they make a purchase decision. So each time a consumer sees a company logo throughout the course of a sporting event or a movie or television broadcast or any other type of event, the brain will record that, hopefully at least, and that image. So then hopefully you'll remember that image the next time you make the purchase. That's what companies are hoping for when they sponsor within a movie or a sporting event or something. Another important criteria in order to be effective is leveraging or activating the sponsorship. So this